Alrighty, welcome guys. I can see everyone start to file in now. We'll just give it a minute or two, let everyone jump in. Pop hello in the chat if you want, guys, as well. Let us know where you're coming from today. Perfect. Okay, a few jumping in. All right, welcome everyone. Welcome Karen, welcome Lee. So today, guys, we've got the lovely Katrina Edwards here, the Director of Training for National Pilates Training, as well, and she guys will be taking you through a bit of a skills session on Pilates Reformer. So Katrina, whenever you're ready.
Hi everyone, how are you doing? Thank you very much and welcome to today's session. Thank you for joining me. So I chose the title, Cause Chaos to Make a Shift with the Pilates Reformer, because I don't know about you, I like the letter C. So my first two words, to cause chaos. I think sometimes, especially for me, I think life is chaotic. And if the last 2 years has taught us anything, the pandemic has definitely caused chaos for me personally, but also I think us as a society and a community. So when I think about the Pilates Reformer and I think about how we can use it, we can go from it being a very quiet practice, in control, feeling successfully in control, and then how do we create challenge using the reformer? Well, for me, it should be about chaos and it should be about creating risks. So I hope you enjoy today's session, and once again, thank you. Thanks, Luke. So who are we? National Pilates Training. National Pilates Training is a registered training organisation. We're celebrating our 21st birthday this year. So we've, I suppose, been through enough time over those 21 years to really understand who we are, what we do, and who we look after. So our government accredited Pilates teacher training qualifications are for the Pilates industry, fitness professionals, allied health, and associated industries. Thanks, Luke. So what are you here for today? What will you learn? A progressive pathway of reformer Pilates method exercises to build functional foot strength for a healthy hip. You'll learn strategies for breakdown. So what does it look like potentially today when an exercise is really chaotic? What does it look like within that? How do you teach that from scratch to get to the point today where you can understand how to cause chaos and why? Transfer skills across into functional fitness training. So hopefully those functional fitness principles are very obvious today, because for me they're really important that they cross over into all somatic practices, into all movement practices. Application of Pilates principles and concepts. For those of us new to the Pilates method today, I'd like to hope you walk away with an understanding of those guiding principles and concepts and how they make the Pilates method unique. How to use reduced base of support to create challenge and improve functional fitness. For me, that's the key. So you and I understand that from a fitness background already. So within the Pilates method, and particularly today on the reformer, how do we do that? The incidental movement activities that we can transfer into our day. I know you believe in that, and for me that's a really important thing. How do we, within the Pilates studio, on the Pilates reformer, encourage incidental movement activities through the day? So there needs to be some things that they can take away from working on the reformer that they can apply to their day-to-day, walking, sitting to standing, running to the tram, moving quickly, moving slowly, taking life in. Thanks, Luke. So what you won't learn today is skills to teach the Pilates method as a qualified Pilates method teacher. Hopefully that goes without saying. You walk away from the webinar today with a broadened perspective, but not ready to teach the Pilates method and not ready to offer your skills and services as a Pilates method qualified teacher. You won't learn today detailed explanations of the anatomy of the foot and hip. Hopefully all of you coming to the webinar today have a background in anatomy, whilst the foot particularly is not something potentially that you deal with a lot, but because the foot's really complicated, as you know. So I won't go into detailed anatomy today. Thanks, Luke. Okay, let's get started. So these principles that you can see on screen are Joseph Pilates' guiding principles, and without these, it's just a bunch of exercises. And I think that's what's unique about the Pilates method, when us as skilled teachers can incorporate our deep understanding of the applied anatomy related to breathing and how mind-body coordination in this somatic practice, the element of breathing is key. How does that help us center? So finding center in the body, understanding center of gravity, understanding our vertical axes, and how we can help people posturally correct, but also understand their own posture within sitting, standing, moving around through life, is the capability to connect to center. Precision. So our method is taught with a clear understanding of start positions, set positions, and why. You know, if someone can connect really precisely and align precisely with the foot, the hip, the spine, the positioning of the head, all those things are really challenging, and all those things need application, education within the Pilates concept regularly. Alignment, such a tricky concept. So alignment is difficult. It's difficult to teach, it's difficult to understand. And I feel like I'm still learning about alignment. So I love reading that as a guiding principle today, because it's an element of the practice that I still feel like I'm learning 30 years down the track. Concentration. So for me, concentration is interesting. You know, I have a learned behavior as a child of, you know, showing concentration. What does it look like to show concentration? And as you get older and more mature, you start to realize that actually concentration is much deeper than that. Concentration is not showing it, but actually being able to get deep enough into our bodies that we can sense on a deep level. Control. Control is another interesting word. You know, we can over control. So what does it feel like to be right in that sweet spot, so centered and deep within our alignment, our posture control within our own body, that we have a deep understanding of what control is without rigidity. Flow, I think that falls on the back of that control conversation. So when we're in flow, time tends to disappear. We're in what we call a flow zone. Within the Pilates method practice, it's exactly the same. When we can sync mind, body with complete coordination and learn to move with just the right amount of effort for control, we experience flow. Commitment. This practice, like all other somatic practice, is a discipline. It takes full immersion, it takes undivided commitment to really experience the Pilates method on a deep level. And when you do understand that complete mind-body coordination, it does transform your life. You do feel really different. So that commitment to the practice is for a lifestyle, is for a perspective on life, understanding how you and I fit within the community and what we're here for, what we're here to do. Thanks, Luke. So the concepts: neutral position, neutral pelvis and neutral zone. So back in the day when Joseph Pilates created the Pilates method, this wasn't studied and this wasn't a thing. We hadn't yet discovered neutral pelvis and neutral spine. So originally the Pilates method was taught in flat back. So all the positions were taught with a flattened spine. But as you know, we've now got science, we've now evolved, our lifestyle, our bodies, you know, life's just changed, life's shifted. We've got much more resources, knowledge around us. Back in Joe's days, you know, most of that was studied from just looking at a human being, studying the human form, both in a quiet, kind of stationary setting, but then also in dynamic. He studied dancers, he studied boxers, he studied skiers. He was an avid fitness fanatic himself. And so, you know, we still use elements of the flattened spine within the method, but we're very rich and diverse, and we've explored when is appropriate to use that. We now understand that neutral pelvis and neutral spine were built for a reason. We have those curves in our spine for a reason. So in studying the Pilates method, I think you're also studying the neutral zone. You're getting an understanding of center of gravity and an understanding of how to help someone find their neutral position and what it feels like to be in that neutral zone and why. So torso stability, that's a key one for us. So it's a key concept, helping people understand that our frame, you know, the shoulder girdle combined with the pelvic girdle, so that space in between being our core, to stabilize the whole, to then be able to operate efficiently and effectively for ease of movement through our limbs is a key concept for us. And hopefully you understand a little bit more about that today in the demonstration. Another key concept is printing. For us, that connection, that mind-body coordination at the very beginning of an exercise where we can tap into our breath, shift out of our thinking brain, into a space, into a sense in your body that you know exactly where you are in space. You can feel your foot, leg, hip, pelvis, spine, shoulder girdle. It's a complete picture prior to moving. Breathing. You noticed it was a principle. It's also a key concept. So because it's a somatic practice, that mind-body connection to breath, connecting breath with movement for flow is a key concept. Thanks, Luke. So this is an original drawing. This is an archival drawing. You know, back in that day, if you think about it, no internet, no access to a lot of resources, what we've got now. But however, how clever was he? A complete genius that he could create with the help of Mr. Gratz. So there was a man he dealt with, an equipment manufacturer in the States, when he started to look at manufacturing his equipment. And so that's an original archival sketch there, but appreciated in the live form. So I'll step out and step back now. So in the live form, this is a contemporary Pilates reformer. It's changed quite a bit since the Joseph Pilates day. So it's got a lot of extra bells and whistles compared to what it looked like. It was originally made of steel. You and I now know steel's very expensive. So the traditional, classical, contemporary reformer was built with steel. We now make it out of wood. Yes, I know, not very environmentally friendly. We also cut down trees to make it. It never used to have the risers on the very back of the reformer, so that's been a contemporary addition. They've been added on because we're a different human being now. We're larger, we're taller, we don't do as many labour-intensive jobs. So the additional application of the risers means that I can accommodate more human beings on this piece of equipment now. I can alter how the force and resistance comes through, sometimes through the shoulder and sometimes through the feet, depending on where we decide to loop you in. Back in the Joe's day, we did have an opportunity to change the headrest. That's still available now. It's just got a couple more levels, which makes sense, right? Because the average human being has also changed posturally. Given we're now in a technical era with computers and devices, we suffer much more in the upper trunk and torso compared to human beings in Joe's day. So we've had to accommodate that. I've already inserted the footboard to get ready for our first demonstration. So the footboard is a key component of the Pilates reformer, and I wanted to share that with you today as part of teaching you a little bit about the foot and a little bit about how we can tailor footwork on the Pilates reformer. Because traditionally, the tiny little bar that was built behind is great, but it's a reduced base of support. And again, I see many individuals these days that I think one thing that's unique about the Pilates method is that we tailor you, we tackle you from the foot up. So we like to address you from the foot up. So we always start with leg and foot work. And for me, one of my favourite things is introducing you to your foot on the board first. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce my model for the session. Her name's Alina. Thank you so much for joining us. So Alina and I thought we'd start you off, given that the session is about getting used to your foot, understanding your foot a little bit more deeply, but also looking at the foot in relationship to your hip. Alina and I thought we'd tackle just you getting to understand the 3 points of pressure in your foot. Hopefully you've all heard of this before, base stance pressure. And so I've given Alina a little practical task to mark up her foot. Would you like me to bring you a little closer so you can see Alina's foot and how she's actually marked up the arches of the foot? So I've asked her to place a cross on the sesamoid, the big toe joint, and then a cross on the 5th metatarsal head, and then a cross just in front of the heel pad dead center. So what are we marking up? These are the 3 arches of your feet. And so the crosses are alerting us to base stance pressure, but the linking marks are medial longitudinal arch, transverse arch, and lateral longitudinal arch. And so as a customer or a client in the Pilates Method studio, actually defining where you place your weight is a key component for us in our practice. You know, commonly a lot of us bear weight and this edge is actually collapsed when we stand. Equally, we have just as many customers that favour the little toe edge. So bringing about more balance between those 3 points will affect the knee and also the hip. Thanks, Alina. Okay, so Alina and I thought we'd run you through just a few sequences. A little bit of fun. You get to watch your body moving on the reformer, this beautiful piece of equipment. And because she's highly practiced, you'll also see all those Pilates principles in shot, in view. So I'll call them out. When you and I see complete coordination, I'll call them out and announce them for you. So the first little thing we thought we'd take you through is the footwork. And so I'm going to take you on a little ride, so come with me. So if we go round for a view now, and we get a chance to watch Alina work her feet on the footboard. So what I look for and what I watch during this first basic series is the foot placement. Alina, we might ask you to bring your feet up on the board. Just keep going a little higher with feet. A little higher up the board, Alina, right there. So we'll all have 2 different feet. It's really common. No 2 legs are the same. If you meet a human being that has identical feet, knees and hips, feel free to email me. I'd love to meet them because I haven't met somebody that's perfect. So when you watch that foot to knee to hip tracking, you and I are becoming aware of the knee alignment. We'd like to see 2 knees heading towards the ceiling with a deep feeling of articulation through the ankle and hip. So now if I take you back over the other way and place you down again so you don't have a roving camera, from side on you get a sense of the articulation within the hips. So can you see the deep crease, the deep fold, which you can on Alina's body because she's really rehearsed. Her capability to do that relies on that concept you read, neutral zone. So identifying within the body the ideal positioning and placement of the spine, the stability of the pelvis allows Alina right now to demonstrate hip disassociation. So femoral glide, so she's getting a lovely hip capsule glide action, which affects, as you and I know, what does this look like as a functional movement? This is a lying down squat. Yes, the feet are a little closer, but where does the action start from for the squat? Right here. So I can work on talus glide through the ankle. I can look at supporting and educating the 3-pronged approach to the foot. So double checking she's not supinating or pronating, because as you and I know, that affects knee stability, knee alignment and control, but also knee function. And it also affects hip alignment, stability and function. So we take Alina on, so she's now going to demonstrate from there some rises. So she'll go out to the top and just start to work into the calf. So calf is really key, isn't it? Calf is crucial. Without good, strong calves, and we wouldn't only in the Pilates studio do them supine. We track them supine to look at the overall alignment, but then as you know, we need gravity to work the calf to develop functional calf strength. But this is a great place to get the mechanics going and to look at articulation within the ankle, knee and hip for triple flexion. One of my next favourite things, if we had more time, if this seminar went all day, we'd take you for a jump. So that's the other beautiful opportunity on this footboard, is to add some plyometric work, which again, in all the settings I teach across my week, I teach in elite sporting organisations. I do use plyo, particularly at the Australian Ballet School, training elite adolescents for their craft from classical ballet. We use the board for jump prep, but also for jump top-up for our students in rehab who are returning to full load. So I think that's a massive bonus in terms of this uniquely built piece of equipment, uniquely designed, spring-loaded, is the opportunity to use it for rehab as well as functional strengthening work. Perfect, Alina. Can you show us what's next? So we're just going to get rid of the board, and Alina's going to slip us in now for a little fun practice with feet and straps. So if we take it down to one loop. Good. You all know the foam roller, so we're using lots of props today because remember our overall aim is to cause chaos. So Alina's now going to lie down on her back on top of the foam roller. So I'll just help her keep it steady. One red? Yes, sorry, one red. That would cause chaos. Yeah. Okay, good. So we have taken it down, so being mindful that you're a deep understanding of using the piece of equipment, you understand the load, you've practiced enough so you understand how the load affects you physically, therefore when you teach clients, it's very easy. Feet in straps, so I'll help Alina get in, because I'd say without hands, it would definitely cause chaos. Yeah. Good, now I've got another little prop to add in. Little Pilates ball between her feet, again just to cause a bit of chaos, to shift her out of her legs back up into her core. So the whole experience becomes about stability of the spine and pelvis now. Our first little activity is frogs. Exhale to push, inhale to bend. Good, we're going to encourage Alina to work range of motion, so we want to see if she can draw the knees in as far as possible without losing the pelvis, the spine in the neutral zone, but I want to see that increased range of motion because again, if I'm thinking about sitting to standing out of a chair, I need to have that amount of hip range available, otherwise I'll be doing sit to stand with my back, which you and I know is really common. Not ideal. Great. You can hear the breath. If I shush for just a minute, you'll notice Alina's attention to breathing. And hopefully on the camera you can see it's just a little shudder, but it's there. But that's great, right? There needs to be enough challenge. Terrific. Last repetition. Terrific, Alina. Bending knees, we'll drop the tool. I'll help you get up. Thank you. Okay, excellent. Now we're going to take you for a little journey for hands and straps. So Alina will just get rid of the foam roller. So big loops, little loops. Heading into hands in straps now. As part of training, as part of teacher training and being a student, you learn a system. In other words, what to do before what and why. But today we're kind of being a bit random just to give you an experience. So we're going to start with the head curled up in chest lift. Good. Elena's going to take the arms down by her sides and do a very simple abdominal hip pattern, just a single leg stretch. So the first leg extends and then the second leg extends. You will have seen it before, you know it. Yes, very typical pattern. The strengthening psoas, abdominals, opening up that lower back. So good for core strength, functional core strength. Given what we spoke about before, we want to really tackle that with range of motion. We're looking at that femoral glide again. We're linking it back to functional sit to stand. Now we're going to play. So we're going to raise the arms up as we bow and arrow the legs and then press. We could do a single leg, we could do a double leg, and we can start to add lots more complexity in around those double lever loads, just like that. So look at the control in Alina's spine. So maintaining the flattened position of the spinal flexion. Upper abdominals stressed, increasing the stress as we increase range in the arms. Fun, huh? Good. Rest, Alina. Thank you very much. Okay, stepping off. So now we've decided to show you a little bit more hip material. So we've gone from, if you think about what we've done, we've gone from closed chain on the footboard to semi-open chain, feet in foot loops, to complete open chain at the feet. So in terms of that feedback loop, I think they're really important things, and you understand that from your background. Okay, we're heading to some lunges. So we've decided today to use a little rotational disc. Again, I'm sure you know them. They're awesome. One of my favourite things to use in the Pilates studio. So Alina's going to apply this fun play tool to the lunge. So we'll set you up with a basic lunge to begin. Good, now don't underestimate the extra work for Alina in controlling the hip. Now that there's a reduced base of support, something unstable underneath her, and actually something that's wanting to rotate her. So where's her counter rotation within her hip group, her glutes, her pelvis, the opposite leg, never mind the spine. So from back on, I'm already going to cue Alina to make sure the coccyx is not heading out to you as an audience, but actually she needs to bring that coccyx back in line so that there's a sense of neutral spine, but also centering. Good, and then slowly return. So let's do one more, and let's do hands off Alina. So challenging the balance a little bit more, but also challenging her understanding of center of gravity, weight placement, which leg should have the most weight, ideally the left. We've only got a blue spring on the reformer, so it's a really light resistance. She's getting a great anterior hip capsule stretch on the right, but she's got to support it and control it. She needs to use as much posterior chain to support the opening. Lots of work through core, but eccentrically, right? So the further back the leg goes, it's that eccentric control through that midline pubic bone to sternum. Deep hip and glute work on the left as she tries to get down to the 90 angle. Again, femoral glide opportunity there. So improving our day-to-day function with sit to stand. Terrific. Thanks very much, Alina. Okay, the next little idea we decided to play with today to show you was the blue square. If you just hold that up for a minute, Alina. So again, I'm sure you've all seen it. AirX, they're fabulous. We use them a lot in the studio. Really great for foot information. So it challenges those foot intrinsics. It's so much harder now to keep your three-pronged approach. And as a learner, you definitely get to feel which side you favour. Are you a little toe or are you a big toe? Can you start to bring about more balance with the use of those foot intrinsics to support your metatarsals, but also so that those foot intrinsics actually strengthen up and do their job, which is to act as shock absorbers for you when you walk, run, hop. Good, so we start really basic, getting to know the play tool again. So Alina really sensing her foot on that blue square. And the work in the arches. And then using the blue square, now that the arches are stimulated, to invite alignment of the knee over second toe. But then also the centering of the hip. So what does it feel like to be in the center of the hip? Should I take you on a little journey again? We have a little look at Alina from the back. So you can see around the pelvis line how tricky that is in Alina's left hip. So we ask her to draw her coccyx back to center, take a little bit of weight out of her right front hip. Very good length in the left side of her waist. And pick up through the inside right waist. There you go. And you can see how well she does because she's used to those self-corrections. She's got great body awareness, good kinesthetic awareness, so she can make those subtle adjustments. But those subtle adjustments have a huge impact on where she feels the exercise. And if we have a little look at her from front on, so you just get to know how busy she is in the foot, because now we're about to ask her to let go. So she's going to take hands off and just fight, literally fight. Life's a struggle, right? So why shouldn't it be a struggle in the Pilates studio? Because if we're serious, it should be a struggle. All right, she's going to play from there now. She's going to come home for a little rest and she's going to take off again. And we're going to add some variations here. So she's going to take off again. We're going to keep hands on initially. We're going to float the left hand up, and as we do, we're going to twist and turn and follow it. So we're adding rotation of the thoracic. Tricky, right? Because the pelvis is going to want to rotate as well. Then we're going to try the other side. So right arm comes up, follow it with the hand, which is a great challenge. Making sure we don't only use vision for balance, but actually use all our other senses. Good. Next step, Alina's going to reach both arms straight forward and just fight. So can she slowly take off, moving left hand and follow it. Raise the head, neck and eyes. Well done. There it is. And keep turning. Pull left side back, right side forward. Fabulous. And then coming back up. Very, very good. Right side. We've had one rehearsal, by the way. We wanted to give you a real context. We wanted you to see the struggle and fight. Excellent. And return it back up. Well done, Alina. Thanks so much for being our model today. Pleasure. Many thanks. Okay, good. So hopefully that's just given you a little taste of the possibility. I get really excited, you know, even when I do a short kind of play like that with somebody on the reformer, because I'm constantly overwhelmed with the opportunity and the possibility. There's so much you can do. And you only have to be in a creative mindset, a growth mindset, to understand that when you know the basics, when you've trained in the basics, the possibilities are endless. So that just gives you a little overview of where we went today and what we did. Thanks, Luke. Good. So in terms of getting to know National Pilates Training, we feel very grateful. AusActive has approved 2 of our skill sets, the first one being Group Fit Professional Pilates Instruction and the second one Professional Pilates Reformer Instruction. They've both been awarded 15 CECs and they're both now badged with AusActive. So you can take up a new membership, which I'm sure you've all heard about. There's now a Pilates section with AusActive. So National Pilates Training are very excited to be involved. We look forward to our future with AusActive as personally, as a professional in the industry, but also as an educational body, National Pilates Training. So both those skill sets, the first one, the Group Fit Professional Pilates Instruction, is 3 units of competency, our fundamentals, our mat basics and our reformer basics. So we see for you as a fitness professional that that's potentially an ideal start. You know, you're maybe not sure yet whether you actively want to teach group reformer classes, but you'd like an insight into the Pilates method. We have those 2 courses available online only, but also we're a Victorian RTO, so you can also attend in person with us. So as an online only student, you can take that course up, that skill set up anywhere, anytime. And anywhere, anytime, meaning that it's up to you how long it takes to get through. So the overall completion time is a maximum of 2 years. So you can chip away at that journey, you can self-direct that journey. Your work placement hours can be done in your own setting, on real time, family and friends, while you're building your skill set and building your exposure and experience in the use of mat work and reformer for the Pilates method. The second one that has also been approved by AusActive is the Professional Pilates Reformer Instruction. So it is 4 units of competency: the fundamentals, introductory to basic reformer, progressive reformer, and intermediate reformer. And so that skill set is training you to be able to teach group reformer classes. You possibly may only ever teach it one-on-one as well, but it gives you the opportunity, the full scope, to have enough repertoire, enough understanding of programming, so that you can walk in and also be equipped to be able to teach a group reformer class. Thanks, Luke. So why upskill? I don't know how you feel, but I think upskilling and increasing your knowledge is vital. I think coming out of COVID and building new skills and getting back out there and working with human beings and spreading our message, we want more people moving at the end of the day. So the new skills you'd get out of this training, new strategies, new offerings for your clients. At the end of the day, you and I know when you're teaching a lot and working with people a lot, it's exciting to have new things to talk about, new things that you've tried, because it ultimately affects the things you've already been teaching, the things you already know. It potentially just streamlines and simplifies. I think that speaks for itself in terms of the reinvigorated approach. Personal growth and professional development, both technically and personally. I think it's paramount that you and I continue to evolve. We continue to upskill. We continue to be more articulate, more versed up, higher skilled. Increase revenue. So I think Pilates is becoming more and more and more mainstreamed. When I started 21 years ago, back in 86, I worked in the very first Pilates studio in Australia. Nobody had ever heard of it. It was some bizarre method. It's back then, yoga wasn't also very popular. These days, for you and I, mind-body practice is the way of the future. So would you like to take a few minutes right now? Do I give you just a little time to reflect on why this? What have you got out of this today? What are your key take-homes? See if you can come up with a couple. I've got a few more questions there on the slide sheet for you. These reflection questions might prod your questions back into Luke and I. All right, Luke, should we hit question time?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Katrina, for that. And thank you, Alina, as well, for the wonderful presentation. All righty. So thank you, everyone, for putting the comments in. I can see a few jumping in with some feedback, which is great to see. Keep throwing them in as well. If you do have any questions, guys, as well, pop them in the Q&A. I've been trying to monitor it throughout. So we do have one from Lee. I'm just trying to find Lee's original question. So knee asked for with the footboard. He asked, were the knees locked through the practice?
Okay, very good question. So knee lock is such an interesting topic, isn't it? I think there's been a hesitation both within our industry and also from the sound of it, potentially a lot of other industries. One of the settings I work in is the Australian Ballet School, and I work with hypermobility students every single day. And so understanding the knee and, yes, getting better language around, do we say lock? Potentially not. Do we talk about the fullest range of motion? Yes. Do we want to get that tib fib into full range of motion? Absolutely. And do we want to get a sense of that tib fib reaching its full extension, yes, because then it talks right the way back up to the femur and the hip. What we don't want to be doing is training a slightly bent leg, which is not functional. So when I work with people on the Pilates Reformer, understanding their full functional control and stability within that is really key. What you do note is as soon as you get the hamstrings and the posterior hip chain going, they usually have much better control through the full knee range. So I'm encouraging you, Lee. I think that knee should be taken to full range, providing the vastus medialis oblique and the hamstrings and posterior hip chain group are strong enough to support moving through and moving out of the full range. So quite commonly the hypermobile and the people with extended range of motion in the knee don't have great eccentric hamstring control, and they certainly don't usually have great posterior hip chain control. So I think you want to make sure that you've put some broken down movement patterns in that succinctly target eccentric hamstring control and posterior hip chain activation, stimulation, and strength. So that way, when you do ask for the full range of motion around the knee, you can see increased control starting to happen.
Lee just added further that, so not a weight-bearing upright activity.
Oh, no, it could be. So have you got me in full view, Luke?
Yep.
Okay, so I don't know about you, but an early incidental activity that I would be giving out if I had somebody with a lack of knee strength and who was potentially hypermobile comes back to just a really general sit to stand. And then how would I progress that? I'd have that particular customer fighting to do a single leg sit to stand. So in terms of functional movement with gravity, I think it's really important that you work on that. So that could be a standing upright knee to stand. And if I stand side on, I don't have hypermobility. I have a tiny bit of hypermobility by the by, but I don't have an increased amount. But even for me, getting to full stand where the tib fib is at lockout, and I have to draw on the vastus medialis for that last 15 degrees to get the knee to full range is where I want to go in a standing environment. And remember that that knee drawing back in line is actually the pull from higher up through the hamstrings to the sit bones. So I think it's about your cueing there, and it's about you applying your functional anatomy. What's the opposite side doing to support it? So I would definitely be doing work in the upright position on that. And then challenging it, standing on a blue square.
Thanks for your comment as well, Lewis. I just saw that one in there. There will be a replay if you missed a little bit of the session at the start. So yeah, that's on our YouTube channel, which we'll post that up either today or tomorrow. If you can't find it, just send us an email and give us a call. We can sort you out with that. Another question from Lee actually as well. So he asked, should the head be supported through the alternate leg stretch and bend action? He said the head and neck looks to be in some stress during that motion.
So which can you help me out? So which movement pattern were we doing where he thought the head looked stressed?
I'm not too sure.
Were we on the foam roller? Were we flat on our back?
I think it was flat on the back. I'm pretty sure flat on the back.
It might have been early on with the footboard sequence.
Yeah.
Early on with the footboard sequence. So if we talk through the neutral position of the spine, yes, we do have an opportunity to change and alter the headrest. And I happen to have Alina really close. So would this be useful if we just lie Alina down again on her back? So I think what we have to get our head around is our understanding of neutral. So in choosing to put the headrest up, the first thing I look at is the head-neck relationship to the thoracic spine. So for this particular customer, is her head and neck below the line of the thoracic? If it is, she definitely needs support. And so we would bring the headrest up, or we might just place a little cushion there. The other thing that you might identify is maybe the head and neck is not below the line, but maybe the thoracic is really stressed and it's arched up off the bench today for whatever reason. So at that point, I'm likely to take her off the reformer and and do a bit of thoracic mobilization work, maybe drag her over the ball to open her back up, maybe do some deep breathing in that position prior to coming back. And possibly by doing that little bit of work off the reformer, she lays back on, or he lays back on, and doesn't have quite as much tension demonstrating the thoracic. So I think it's not as easy as saying, you know, what do we do with that end? But I think you've got to look at each particular customer in understanding neutral spine as a whole and where potentially for this customer do they need assistance, because not everybody will need assistance. As you can see with Alina, she might have had some tension here. That's another thing. So there might have been a bit of tension today. She's on screen. Today she's on Zoom. I'm teaching her. It's not an ordinary situation. So she might have looked potentially a little stressed. Also on the foam roller, maybe that was the moment you saw. Alina was fighting. So is that okay that she looked a bit of stress here? Absolutely. Because that was a moment in time that we decided to place her on foam roller to really help you understand we can do that series ordinarily just flat on her back for frogs, and that has a whole gamut of activities down there. But what does she learn from being on top of the foam roller? Center of gravity, increased learning about neutral position, but predominantly there to challenge stability. Hopefully that's answered your question.
Yeah, I just saw a few comments popping in. Lee just mentioned when the legs were in the hammocks or straps. Yep. He just mentioned that Alina's head was raised off the board, which was in that motion.
So for feet and straps, she was on top of a foam roller. So her head at that point was aligned with her thoracic and her pelvis. She was actually on top of the reformer. But then when she went hands in straps, yes, she was in trunk flexion. So if we lay Alina back down on her back, so this particular movement pattern, the hands in straps, could be done flat on the back. But we chose to show you today with her in spinal flexion. So we pressed the arms down and we brought her up into spinal flexion. Now that's for a specific purpose. We want to target and strengthen upper abdominals. So we've chosen to do that today on purpose. But ordinarily, you don't have to. Depending on what you're looking at for your client and what you think your client's needing out of this particular sequence today. But the minute I go double legs, so if Alina adds in the extra load with 2 legs, it would be unsafe to keep her head back. You would definitely bring her up into spinal flexion to support that lever load. So again, it's just understanding how the stress comes through the body, why and what you're using the activity for. So what are you trying to target? What are you trying to improve? Strength, stability, mobility, flexibility, ultimately all those elements will be operating within most activities, but a few of them will be intensified, elevated.
Thanks for that, Lee. And thanks for all those comments coming through as well. We'll clarify that. Got one from Sarah, who just asked what was the name of the blue mat before.
Oh,
this is
Airx?
Yeah, that's the one.
It's a really good question. All I know is the brand is Airx, same brand that makes our mats, and they only sell them in one kind of style. There's only one size, there's only one thickness, and I think you might find for most Pilates yoga suppliers, as in EMP Industries is where we buy ours from, but I think you might find that it's listed under stability in the stability section. So it's a balance tool.
Yeah, Angela just added balance pads, another name.
There we go.
Perfect. Yeah, perfect. Cool. I got one from Alison, who just said that she lives in a small town and there's no official Pilates classes except for clinical Pilates. She asked how this would affect the training program for work experience or observation hours for your course.
Yeah, not at all. So maybe it's about making friends with that clinical Pilates studio and asking, could you do some observation hours there? But again, that's not essential. We have opportunities through other mediums online that you can do observation hours. But if, for example, you had a relationship with that clinical Pilates studio, maybe doing work placement hours there might be a win-win, because maybe they're looking for new teachers, new staff. So I'd say investigate that. And is that somewhere you'd like to have some of your work placement hours taken or done there, with the view that you might like to work there? So are you using your work placement hours to build a relationship with a small business, with the view that you'd like a job there at the end? That's just one suggestion.
That. I got Joe. I just saw your question in relation to the replay. I've just popped the YouTube, our YouTube channel, just in the chat there. So anyone that's looking for a replay of the session today, just bookmark that link or head to that tomorrow. The replay should be up in there. Got one from Eva, who just said it reminded me that if the foot and hip as well as the knee are not in line, it creates problems. Therefore, slow Pilates movement on reformers are important for our function.
Yeah, very good. And you could look at, for example, that lunge series and bring it right back to just teaching a lunge, couldn't you? So, a basic functional lunge done in an upright position. Can we pay attention to those 3 points of pressure first off? Is that little practical task that we showed you with the pen, it takes 2 minutes, right? But don't underestimate what it does, because the minute you ask your customer to take a pen and actually draw and mark up, remember there are lots of proprioceptors that live in our skin. So the fact that I have to, with a pen, mark, I'm stimulating the proprioceptors, which in turn, because I stimulate the proprioceptors, I stimulate the whole sole of the foot, which means when I go to place my weight on it, I've already improved kinematics. I've already improved proprioception. So I'd encourage you to play with that marking up activity and see what happens to your customers when you do that prior to any weight-bearing activity. Can you then draw on that for cueing and remind them where the crosses are, and can they sense their weight and the sense of balance between those 3 points? And you're right, it'll affect knee over toe, I'll feel it more. It'll affect knee to hip, so tracking that sense of anchoring back into the hip, that sense of drawing back up into the hip, and I should be able to get a better sense of centering the hip with the knee and the foot.
Another one from Michael, who just says, is it a requirement to complete the mat training as a prerequisite to reformer training?
No,
Michael's
it's not.
qualified in mat.
No, it's not. So within the fundamentals unit, there are a series of fundamental exercises that you learn, and the fundamentals are actually mat-based. So that unit of competency, that fundamentals, is learning the Pilates method from scratch, right from the very beginning. And so you will address a little bit of mat work within that fundamentals unit, and everything you address in that fundamentals unit on the mat, you'll carry into the reformer when you start the reformer 01 unit.
Thanks, Glenn, for that comment as well. I just replied to you in the chat. So unfortunately, the replays wouldn't obtain a CC, but live with everyone attending live today, as long as you complete the survey afterwards, we'll have that CC added into your account. We've got another one from Laura, who said, how would you go about teaching beginners and keeping the class flowing, fun, and energetic, while also finding a balance between correcting technique and concentrating on correct alignment?
Wow, such a great question. Because I don't know how you feel. I think the flow of the class, if I've come to a group class, that's my job as a teacher, is to keep it flowing and moving. So how do I blend in a bit of education? I think that just takes practice. So how do I develop a culture of getting them into their breathing right from the go-get? I take time at the very beginning lying on the reformer. That's the quiet moment. Everybody lies down and we just connect to breathing. And I think if you do a good job of that in the beginning, you will find your moments to tip in with a bit of education versus keeping it flowing. You'll learn how to create a tempo for each particular exercise. Is it a slow moving exercise? Is it a fast moving exercise? So within your beginner course, if you set it up as a beginner course, then I think you've got an opportunity within that to develop culture, behavior, that they know when they come to a reformer class, it's all about connecting to themselves and their breath. And they will learn a personal rhythm within the breathing that then you can interlace into every sequence. So in answer to the educational component, I think you layer it. I don't think you come out with a lot of education over the first few sessions. I think you're very simplistic in your cueing. It's where to place my feet, it's where to place my hands, it's how to lie. Because if I get the basics of how to lie, where to place my feet and hands, so you're going close to center, proximal, and then you're going out periphery. If you start with directional cues that way, over the course of the next few weeks, then you can layer on more education, more deep concepts related to alignment, related to stability, control, improving functional strength.
Thank you. So that looks to be it for the questions at the moment. Of course, if anyone's got any others, please throw them in. We'll get them before we finish today. I'll just throw these details up again here for everyone. So you've got Katrina's email down the bottom and her number down there as well if you need to get in contact. You can also jump on the National Pilates website there as well.
And there's a 15% discount for our April intakes. So these courses are about to kick off in April. So in 3 to 4 weeks' time, and as an Oz Active registered member, if you apply and enroll for our April intake, you'll receive a 15% discount on either of those courses, both of those courses.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So make sure you get the most of that, guys. I think that is it for today. Katrina, do you have anything else you'd like to close off with?
No, just many thanks for attending. I hope you got something out of it. I hope it enriches the rest of your day, but also gives you food for thought, some extra fuel when you go to work with your clients tomorrow, later today.
Thanks, Katrina, and thanks everyone for attending. If you have any questions for Katrina or myself, please shoot them through. But have a lovely rest of your day.
Terrific.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.